we have to start. So I'm very happy.
Perfect. Good,
No,
good.
perfect quality. No, thank you again. And thank you for joining again, Bill. It's been a pleasure. Your first session was really helpful for the new starters. And again, this is a connection with related to our first episode that we have recorded, and it's quite very much linked and with some very interesting questions and arguable questions and experienced people like you and other business brokers. Because I think when you start entrepreneurship or you start a business, it's a lot about the approach each individual has and the perspective, right? So today's episode actually is about, we are going to discuss three different options: having a franchise, buying an ongoing business, or starting something from the scratch. So that's another very interesting conversations that I generally have with a lot of people, because everybody, it's a matter of perspective. As I said, some people like to build the brand, somebody likes to have a cash flow business, and someone says, okay, how does franchising going to help me? And in my view as alpha mind and as a consultant is that each one has pros and cons, and you can't say that this is 100% a fit ideal for you, this is a fit model for you, this works well, this doesn't work well. It totally depends how much effort you're willing to put in and what your core goals are. So what's your view in terms of, if you look at these three options, what do you think?
So I think I agree wholeheartedly, Fahad, with what you said. There are pros and cons to all three of those. Let me hit some pros, and I'll just go down the list. Starting from scratch. Some pros for that. You have complete freedom, right? You have unlimited creativity because you're doing it on your own. You're building your own brand. There are no royalties. So great freedom for that. If you're buying an existing independent business, here are some pros for that. You have existing customers. Hopefully you have existing cash flow. Employees are typically already in place, and there's immediate income. So some really nice pros for buying an existing business. And finally, some pros for buying a franchise. You're getting a proven operating system. Typically, it's an established brand. You're getting training with that. You're getting marketing support. You have purchasing power. You have ongoing coaching. A lot of times, getting financing is easier with a franchise, and there is a community of fellow owners, right? So you can leverage the collective intelligence of everyone in the network. So those are some significant pros on the franchise side of things.
Right. So, Bill, some of the people who probably I'm talking to are actually exploring the option of applying for an E2 US investor visa, right? From that perspective, do you, I mean, again, it's a situation, capital, and all those things. How can franchise really help? Because you have definitely come across a lot of cases where people have actually bought franchises because they want to start something new in a new country and relocation. So how do you think these three factors play a role when it comes to people who are interested in relocating from their country and starting a business?
So I've done hundreds of E2s over the last 23 years. And, I can speak more to the franchise side of things because I've never sold an independent business for an E2 investor. But I know with someone who is considering franchising, typically that is looked upon very highly in the E2 world because the consular knows that there's going to be training involved. They know that it's an existing brand, that they have multiple units in their system. There's going to be ongoing coaching. There's going to be support. They have a disclosure document that the embassies can look at, and they can look at the past success of those different franchises in the network. So it is a great way to get the E2 visa approved. Not the only way. but it is a very successful way of doing that.
So, Bill, especially for those franchises and people who are actually overseas, one of the fear is that if we have to make that investment and we have to pay the franchisor uh, because they have to show an investment and their engagement in the process. So they generally say, what if, let's say, for some reason, some odd reason, our visa doesn't get approved? So what will happen to our investment? What is the arrangement with the franchisors we are talking with? So how does that whole mechanic work or the dynamics work when it comes to E2 investor visa?
Yeah, so the E2 requires that investment be at risk. So they have to make that purchase with the franchisor. Some franchisors, if the E2 is not approved, they will return a portion of that franchise fee. Most will not. Most will say this is a non-refundable franchise fee. And then in that case, what the entrepreneur has to do is he or she will need to sell that to someone else. So a lot of times the franchisor will assist with that, or most times the franchisor will assist with that so they can get their money back. But they're not required to refund the franchise fee in most cases.
Okay, so Bill, is it possible that people can have that thing in the escrow account till the time the transaction is completed once they land themselves and then the process is completed of franchise purchase?
So I want to make sure I understand the question, Fahad. Are you saying can they put the funds in an escrow account?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, that's up to the franchisor.
Okay.
And most franchisors do not do that.
Okay.
You have to make that investment. And really, if they're just putting it into an escrow account, in many cases, they're putting their chances at an E2 at risk because those monies in an escrow account are not at risk, and the documents require that those funds be at risk.
Okay. No, thanks for giving this clarity because that's one of the questions that generally most frequently asked questions, I would say, is one of those questions.
So
And
here's the thing, though. If I've worked with hundreds of clients with the E2,
right.
and their immigration attorney is going to have a pretty good idea of if they're going to get approved for that E2 or not before the potential franchisee makes that investment. So
Right.
I've never had anyone make the investment and then not get the E2. The immigration attorney is going to say, look, there's a chance you're not going to get this. And then they have to decide, okay, is it worth the risk or not?
Right.
In many cases, the immigration attorney is going to be able to say, look, I can't guarantee approval, but it sure looks like you've got everything lined out perfectly. And I don't see any reason for them to say no. But again, they can't guarantee it.
Okay. All right. Yeah, of course, because that's a counselor thing, right? And that's what we've been telling our clients that no matter how strong the case is, the decision making as far as the visa is concerned is not in our hands. It's up to the counselor and how well the case has been presented.
Correct.
However, if you're going for a franchise, the advantage is that it has a whole history in the country for operating for so many years and they have got networks and stuff. So that really helps you in terms of, because they know the business, they know the brand. So that makes things easier for you, for them actually to assess that what you are actually planning to do. And they have the means to check the records and financials. So they're quite confident about what you are presenting. And that's where franchise business really helps. So when it comes to like building something from scratch, this is independent of the E2 visa I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because a lot of people say that if we have to put in like 4 or 5 years and we are willing to put in that effort, and probably those are the people who are already in the United States or somewhere where they are based, and they say we are building a brand just like a job. We are building a brand for somebody else. Why don't we go and start something and build our own brand? So you have seen trajectories. Like, do you think which is a faster way of building something, and what what is the differentiating point of starting something if you're already in the United States and versus going in for a franchise because you're just starting your entrepreneur journey?
So yeah, so uh, full disclosure, right? I'm a franchise guy. I believe in franchising. I've owned multiple units of multiple franchises, so I'm a franchise guy. It doesn't mean I don't believe you can't make something from scratch and build it into something big. You certainly can, but here are some challenges with doing it from scratch. First of all, there's unlike a franchise, there's no proven system. There's a much higher risk of failure. I think the statistic that we've seen for years is that after 5 years, only 20% of independent businesses are still open, while 80 to 90% of franchises are still open. So there's a much higher chance of success with the franchise. On an independent business, you have to learn an awful lot by trial and error, right? You have to try things to see if they work. So it's one step forward, two steps back. When you partner with a good franchisor, they've already made all those mistakes. So now there's a path for you to follow. You have to build the marketing from zero. If you're starting your own brand, certainly no one has heard of that brand before. So you've got to build the marketing. You've got to come up with the creative. Again, a franchisor already has all of that ready to go for you. And then on the financial piece of it, banks are typically far less willing to finance an independent startup versus a successful franchise business.
Right.
There are all kinds of different funding opportunities for a franchise business. For citizens, as you mentioned here in the States. Yeah.
So, well, in case because each franchisor owns number of networks, a huge network. If like somebody starts a franchise and it is not doing very well and they're struggling, what kind of support do they get from the franchisor to make sure their success and guide them through?
Yeah. So sort of the mantra of the franchisor is there's no scenario where the local franchise owner fails and the franchisor succeeds. The franchisor wants that local person to be very successful.
Right.
Any franchise business that fails, the franchisor has to disclose that to future buyers. So they have a lot of incentive to help you to grow your business. So if you're not doing well, they're going to, first of all, you can proactively reach out to them, but they will be reaching out to you. What can we do to help you? And some of them will put sort of curbs in place. You need to do X number of calls, X number, whatever the KPIs are for that particular business. But they will help you get on track. Now they're not going to do the work for you. You've got to be willing to do that work. But if you are and you follow that process, you can typically pull things back and get on the successful side again.
Right. So one of the questions where real estate is involved, Bill, maybe a cafe or a restaurant brands where you do need a real estate. So obviously franchisor's job is to sell their franchise in that particular territory. So do people like you or the consultants who are working, do they really help them even identify the right location, the geographic location to the new franchisees?
So typically the franchisor, if they're a coffee shop, as you mentioned, or a retail store, they'll have their own real estate department. So they'll have someone that will assist that franchisee or potential franchisee in finding the right location. And again, they're not going to approve a bad location because it's their name that's on the line. So they're going to help you find the right thing. Absolutely.
Okay. I mean, that's at least a bit relaxing because that's, again, one of the things that you buy a big store somewhere and you end up leasing that. And eventually, the traffic and the footfall is not coming and you struggle with bringing in the clients and attracting them. You'll probably do more marketing. That's one of the things that also is one of a important consideration. So in that case, and Bill, do people get like exclusive territories, or exclusivity is not something which is given with every franchise brand? How does that work?
Yeah, so it is not. Um, it's not the same across the board. So most franchisors provide exclusive territories where you have typically in the U.S. the delineation is by zip code. You get a certain number of zip codes that equal 100,000 in population or 200,000 in population.
Right.
But that's not the case with all brands. So some brands will provide a larger territory, but they can have multiple units inside that territory. So there are pros and cons for that. I prefer exclusive territory,
Yeah.
but and that is the way most brands do it, but not all.
Okay. Okay. Right. Because again, this is one of the things that every entrepreneur, probably everybody looks at competition, right?
Yep.
So if your competition is 2 blocks away or 3 blocks away, that's one of the questions that a franchisee will probably ask, that, within my territory, like 2 blocks away, there's the same brand and another
Exactly.
is operating. So those are one of the key considerations. So talking about Bill, buying something which is already up and running business, so just need your independent advice, not as a franchise consultant, but as a general consultant who has been consulting so many businesses. uh, what could be the drawbacks? I mean, obviously there are a lot of pros the way I see it, because it's a cash flow, you'll get the staff, you'll get everything. What are the possible challenges when you buy an up and running business?
So the first and probably the most obvious is that the seller, they may be leaving for a reason, right? I mean, it maybe it's retirement, or maybe it's something else. It could be because there are issues with that with that business. You may be inheriting problems
Right.
that you're just not aware of with that existing business. Uh, a lot of the customers that are currently with that business may be there because of their relationship with the current owner. So when that current owner leaves, do those customers leave as well, or do they start looking at other options? So you have a concentration of customers, but how many of those are customers because of that specific owner? There may be deferred maintenance that is needed on the business that hasn't been kept up with, and you might not be aware of it until you're 6 months in. And it's also it's hard to verify what the future performance is going to be. With a franchise, you can look at average revenue for their locations across the country. With an independent business, you just don't have that ability.
That's, and some of the very valid points, because I have met some people who had bad experiences, and then they only realized it once they bought the business, all the transactions were done, and it was like 3 to 4 months later. I mean, not every business, but in some instances, I have heard that this has happened.
Yeah.
So in case of franchise, Bill, exit is a very important part of every business, right? So some people think it way ahead, and some people plan it during the course of the business, exit planning. So is exit planning easier when you are handling a franchise? What if you decide to exit probably 2 years, 3 years? How does that work?
Yeah, so that's also one of the questions I ask my clients as we're going through the initial process. What's your exit plan? How long do you plan to be in? Whatever business ends up being the right match.
Yeah.
What's your exit plan? Is this something you want to pass down? Is this something you want to sell? So we talk about that up front. With a franchise, much easier to sell a franchise business versus an independent business, because someone purchasing a franchise business knows they're going to get training. They know they're going to get ongoing support from the franchisor. They're going to get an FDD, a disclosure document from the franchisor. So all of these things that when you're purchasing an independent business, you sort of have to trust that the independent owner is going to provide you all of these things and it's all going to be accurate. You know you're getting it with the franchise. Now, the one caveat is if you're selling an independent business to someone, no one has to approve it. No one has to approve the buyer. The buyer just has to want it. With the franchise, if you're selling it, the franchise still has the right to approve that buyer. Now, they're not going to unduly withhold their consent. They want you to be able to sell it, but they do have to approve the buyer. It's got to be someone who goes through their process so they can get approved by the franchisor.
All right. So, Bill, do the franchisee has to go back to their franchisor, or do they have to find the buyer first and then go to the French principal and tell them that they are interested in selling a franchise? So, how does that work? Does it work?
So again, it sort of depends on the brand.
Okay.
Some franchisors have resale departments that will help you find a buyer for your location. Some will recommend you speak specifically to a business broker who will list it in your area and help you find the buyer. You can find the buyer yourself and bring it to the franchisor, bring that buyer to the franchisor if you'd like. But typically, they're very helpful in helping you find that candidate to purchase your opportunity.
Okay. And do the terms change? Because if it's an up and running franchise and somebody wants to exit, maybe because of health issues, maybe relocation, but it's let's say it's the business is doing really well. So for the new franchisor, do the terms and conditions in terms of pricing and all those changes, or it remains the same?
Now they're going to get the business under the same terms as the former franchisee, as far as the royalties and all of that. What they're purchasing, though, is not going to be between them and the franchisor. It's going to be between them and the seller, them and the franchisee, whatever price they agree on.
All right. So, and the one who is running the franchise and planning to exit, do they get some kind of a goodwill, or how do they ensure or that, okay, after so many years putting in the effort, now we are also getting a return when we are exiting? So is there a fixed formula for that?
Well, usually it's by industry. Every industry has a pretty accepted, it's 2.5 times EBITDA, or it's 3 times last year's gross sales, whatever that is. Every industry typically has something that's used as a guideline for the sales price.
All right. So
and that franchisor, by the way, will let the selling franchisee know what it is for their particular industry.
Okay. All right. Now, thank you very much again for your time, Bill. That was really interesting. And these are some of the very important questions that I think, and sometimes people do ask me that what is taking so long in terms of, when they're planning to do things, and when I'm talking to them, building a structure, and I keep on telling them that you need to have complete clarity in terms of, and that's what we are here for, to give you the complete clarity, and we are being very candid in terms of what you're planning to do and what you intend to achieve. So because whether the person is in where we are based already and planning to start a business, or somebody coming from overseas, the way I see it is it's a very important life decision in both cases.
More important to be right than to be fast.
Right.
You want to find that opportunity that matches your skill set.
Absolutely. And that's one of the very important things that we are talking to clients. And when they ask me about, okay, send me options of franchises and everything. And because some of the people in a hurry, or maybe, kind of exploring, they start looking at a lot of franchise sites, and they start coming up with a lot of brands, because everything starts looking like an opportunity to them. And I was like, no, if you take that route, it's going to be really difficult, because there could be like 700 brands available from franchising. That doesn't mean that everything is an opportunity for you. So hold down and seek advice from people, because some of the people also feel that, getting the advice probably takes them into a financial, they have to pay something. And I was like, if you really want to do something, then you need to have the right advisors with you, right? And that's what you get it right the first go. At least the first steps all should be chalked out properly, rather than having regrets later and then running for somebody to get advice, because but then a major chunk of your capital is already gone.
That's right.
So it is better if you are very vigilant at the initial stages, and then obviously you and of course people like you and us and the franchisors, they are always there to help and guide them through the process. But as long as the first step was taken properly, and keeping all the facts and figures in mind, so then there are lesser disappointments, I would say. There's, because every business struggles, it's not that no business goes like skyrocket.
That's right.
Right. So yeah, thank you so much, Bill. Thank you once again for your time. And hopefully we will touch base again with some interesting topics. And you enjoy the rest of the day. And we will speak soon then.
Thank you, Fahad. I sure appreciate it. You have a good day, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.